Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Reviewing Comics with me, your host, Alexander Turbin. It's this issue episode is a little late. I've been battling a sinus infection, so you can probably hear it in my voice. And we'll see how this goes and see how long I can do this. Today we're going to be reviewing The Adventures of B.O.C. By Invasion Comics, a 1986 comic. But before we get into that, I'd like to show you some of my own work. This is Random Access, and it's a 12-page full-size, not full color anymore for the time being comic, although the back stories will still be in color. At least one of them will. You can get these at patreon.com/Alexander Turbin, or you can check them out on my website, alexanderturbin.com, or you can just message me on alexturbin04401 at instagram.com. Wait, does Instagram have a .com? But anyway, so The Adventures of B.O.C. I saw this, I got this when I went on vacation last week, and I really knew when I got it that it was going to be something different. Is it a power comic? It's got a lot of similarities to power comics, but it also has some things that kind of diverge from the usual power comic fare. The cover is really nice. I really like the logo and the whole layout of the book, and I really like this illustration of, you can really feel that he's like banging on the glass to get out of that universe or whatever, and it's really nice. It's got a window frame, and a lot of people don't like that. They like the full color, the full bleed of a on the cover, but yeah, I'm not going to take points away from him from that, because I do that myself. It's just easier to orientate the illustration and not lose any of the illustration on the comic. So I'm actually giving them points for that because it's such a good cover. I'm going to read the intro, and then we'll get into the story, and then we'll talk about the art and the writing and all that stuff. This is written apparently by Thomas L. Perry, and the art is by James Pastorino. Apparently, I didn't look up Thomas L. Perry, but Pastorino apparently is a quite accomplished fine arts artist, doing canvas paints with I think oils and acrylics and stuff like that. So I think after he did the 3-issue series, he just quit comics and went into the fine arts field, which is that's cool. It's anything you can branch off into it that you enjoy is really great. I'm going to read this intro, and then we'll get into the rest of the comic. In another dimension lies a great universe, with one great being radiating light and giving life. This is the eternal realm. Within the realm is a rebellious force. It has been banished to a planet that lies in a temporal realm, a planet called Rebellion. Here, within this pocket of time, the Rebellionites live and die slaves to this dark force. Some take their bondage passively, some fight it valiantly, some accept it blindly, others, like sleepers awakened, run for the rest of their lives, escape from the darkness. So that sounds like a really cool beginning, but right from the beginning, I noticed that it doesn't tell you, like in another great universe. Okay, it's in another dimension. With one other great being radiating light and giving life. Okay, that's cool. It's a giant god, whatever. This is the eternal realm. Within this realm is a rebellious force. That makes it sound like it's Star Wars, and their rebellions are good, but apparently not. It has been banished to a planet that lies in a temporal realm. So it's in another dimension, in another time, and apparently they're bad. I don't think the Rebellionites, which great word, that Stan Lee would be very happy to give that name, I think. So within this pocket of time, the Rebellionites live and die, slaves of this dark force. So the Rebellionites are good, but there's a dark force. He doesn't say what dark force it is, or he doesn't even say before then that is a dark force. He just says the Rebellionites, saying to me that the Rebellionites are bad. But then they back off and they say the Rebellionites are good, but they're being enslaved by a dark force. So if you kind of go back and reread this introduction, the rest of the story becomes a little bit easier to quantify, I guess. Um, so, and then the rest is just him talking about the Rebellionites and their way. Um, so it starts off with this guy running from bad guys. Here's the bad guys, and he's just running away from them. Apparently, he's our hero. He's in some sort of cave, or no, he's running along a river, a stream, and then he and apparently he can grab light and transform it into power. So he's a superhero of sorts. So he's running along the river basin, and he gets caught between these two rocks, and he kind of loses the bad guys chasing him, and that's when he sucks up the light energy, and then he continues on running away from the guards, which he finds a cave, I believe. This is where the power comics of the story comes in, because I would say the one of the biggest um, um, traits of a power comic is that it gets a little complicated. They can be very complicated, and you can't really understand them really as great as you could. Um, uh, I mean, they're usually a very simple story, but also convoluted. The writer just usually doesn't know how to convey his thoughts, either through dialogue or text or whatever. But so he says, "I'm safe now," and he kind of falls over, I think, or he falls or something. And then this is a very Power Comics panel right here. Um, I it took me a second. He's radiating light up onto a cliff, um, over across a cliff, up a mountain. Cannot tell what's going on. Um, so then he's radiating some kind of light. Not sure why. And then he reflects back into the beginning. His rebellionites were good, and they used the light from the Creator to be to help mankind or help the rebellionites and stuff. But then along came a dark force, and the dark force could suck up the energies. And apparently, the light could only be used for good originally, and then this guy used it for his selfish aims, and was also teaching them how to um, use it for their own selfishness instead of helping other people, healing and stuff like that. And then so it goes back to the kid. He's talking about his grandfather, talking about all of this stuff, and at some point, I can't remember where, he tells him that he's a reflector, um, and that he is going. I don't know. It doesn't actually say that he's part of some sort of um, thing like Star Wars, where he's the chosen one or whatever, but it greatly implies it. So uh, he's still being hunted. He goes through the caves or whatever. The guards are still on him. They're trying to decide what to do. The guards are talking about Azor, who is the big bad guy. That's Azor, and how if they capture this reflector, then Azor will give them, great powers or whatever. He's the new overlord of rebellion. He wants to become the new overlord or whatever. So that's pretty cool. So they're chasing the good guy. They just call him the boy. They don't give him a name at all, which I think I kind of think this is has religious overtones, but I really can't tell. It's not direct enough. It's just got some metaphors and stuff, I think, that are like the great light and the evil creature or whatever. So he runs through the caves. He's on some kind of cavernous platform, and he's run out of room. But there's a giant crystalline tower, and it's a citadel of B.O.C. on the cover it's B.O.C. Here it's B.O.C. So I don't know if it's supposed to be B.O.C. or B.O.C. or what, but it's still kind of cool. The boy's now expendable. They wanted him to lead them to the Citadel of B.O.C. And so they shoot at him, but he jumps over the cavernous wall or whatever. But right before he does that, I don't know. I thought that he was on a cliff and that he was jumping off the cliff, and then that shooting it made him jump off the cliff. But then it goes here and he's running in a cavern. So there you go, the Power Comics Achilles heel, I guess, of trying to decipher what the story is going on. And these crazy panels don't make it any easier to decipher what's going on. But it's kind of okay because it's artistically pleasing, I think, to having different sizes and different types of panels. So he's in a cavern now, and there's this demon dog that is going to kill him. I think he's one of the hellhounds of the guards, and he goes after the boy. And the boy, within the last second, I guess he prays to his god, or metaphorically just kind of screams for help from the light, and he smashes this crystal that he had found earlier against the wall, and a door opens up, and he jumps through the door, leaving, or I guess it squishes the demon dog. I hadn't realized that before. I just thought it was locking them out. But later on, the demon dog, I guess, is dead. He is attacked. The boy is then attacked by another guy, and they kind of have a tussle. And he's like, wait, stop. What are you doing? Why are you after me? And then this other character, Throm, he leads into this explanation of they are the... It doesn't say, and it's very convoluted, and it's very hard to decipher. There's lots of different... they throw in a lot of different names and a lot of different concepts that just really kind of... there's a rebellion. He's a reflector. The boy is a reflector, but they don't say he's a reflector. So it just kind of goes into that. The guards want to destroy the Citadel of B.O.C., so they bring in this big gun, I guess. It kind of looks like a gun. They call it an orb. And so they fire their big beam at the Citadel. I don't know why. The Citadel blows up, but they'd gotten everybody that was in the Citadel rebellions. I'm not sure. A different sect of rebellions. No, I just don't know. And he goes on and he says that it's perfectly fine that they destroyed the Citadel of B.O.C. and that they're going to be going on to adventures to free the rebellions. Apparently there's a death. He says, look, death. And he's taking some of the guards that had been killed while firing on the Citadel. I don't know if shards fell into or stabbed into the guards, or the explosion from the gun excuse me, killed some of the guards. I don't know. They don't really go into that, why some of the guards died. He says that all of them are accounted for, so it's not any of them. So these are kind of the rebellion against the rebellions, and they're trying to, as far as I can glean, the light from the god comes down in beams, and it goes to their planet. But the Azor has built a citadel up above the clouds, so it steals the light beams from the great god, and he has enslaved the rebellions. So that's kind of what this is going on. I don't know if I have no idea what's going on here, actually. Because they're explaining it, they're trying to explain it. But there's of the dark hives. I don't know what the dark hives are. Dark hives good, dark hives bad. The king. They talk about the king. I don't know if that's supposed to be the king or there's a good king. There's just a lot of I don't know if I could read this a dozen times and figure out what was really truly going on. Um, but he says, Throm says, finally gets down to the nitty gritty and says that the boy is a reflector and that his father and grandfather were reflectors, and that to stop Azor, the reflector has to release, excuse me, all of its light, and that will kill Azor, but it also kills the reflector. And he's asking him to give his life to the rebellions. I think that's what's going on. Um, I think the reflector is called Radiant, which is pretty cool considering Mutandis has a Radiant in it. Um, so that's where he realizes that the reflector or Radiant has to give his life for the rest of the good of the other people, the rebellions, and they just keep kind of talking about that and talking about different things in the story. Like I said, it's very hard to decipher. Um, so I don't even know what these are. These are a fight scene between a Radiant and Azor, and Azor wins. Maybe it was his grandfather or great grandfather or father or something. Um, so he asked him at the end, Zumar, will you? And you finally realize that the kid's name is Zumar. Will you give your life to let the light go forth and attack Azor? So he becomes another um, fighter for the light, I suppose. Um, so, yep, here's Adventures of B.O.C. Um, the artist is, here's the thing keeping it from being a power comic, in my estimation, is that you can genuinely see how James Pasternaro, um, I think he's the writer and creator. Although it says director of art, and this shows the directing editor. I think he's also the story. He created the story, and then maybe other people fleshed it out. And I think it's too many writers in the pot. This guy, who is apparently maybe just the money guy, this Paul B. Martin, and they sold 12,000, or they printed 12,000 copies of this. So I don't know if they sold all of it. There are two more issues, so apparently they did pretty well. This is 1986, before or during the glut of black and whites. So they were probably making a good amount of money on these comic books. But this is just a friend of theirs that read comics, and he's probably the money guy, and he wanted his input. He didn't like some of the storylines that they were going for, so he gets them to kind of trash what they did before and come up with this new story. And it really, I'm not a big fan of the story. The plot is very minimal, and yet it's also convoluted. But it is what it is. The biggest problem of this not being a power comic is that there's such great ink lines going on, such great strokes. One of the problems for it being a power comic is the backgrounds are pretty much non-existent, and when they are, they're just kind of scritches, which goes into with his fine art background, I guess. But it also, I mean, you look at Dave Mazzucchelli, and this looks very similar to what something Dave Mazzucchelli would do. You see that in Rubber Blanket. He did a lot of this type of stuff. And I mean, the faces are very accomplished. A lot of the figures are very accomplished. Where he has this drawback is that he wants to make it a fine art comic, and yet also a comic. So he adds all of these fine art comic things instead of maybe using some of the things that would have been used better in a regular comic book. Like you have fine art, and you have regular art. Your classical art, your commercial art and stuff like that, and then you have your comic art, and they're all different. And just to think you can power through a comic book using fine art techniques it really kind of does a disservice to the comic book format because you're not using some of the traits and some of the ideas and stuff from that people have used over and over again in comics that work. I mean, a lot of them don't work, but a lot of them do. And the reason they work is because they're tried and true. And I'm all for experimentation. I love experimentation, but you kind of have to have a context about. It's like doing fine art. You have to know anatomy first. You have to know layouts and background, and all this color scheme and all this other stuff. And if you don't, if you're just throwing stuff on a canvas, then you're never going to grow and mature as an artist. But I do, saying that, I do really like this art. This is a power comic. See, he doesn't know how to fit some of the characters into panels. He doesn't know how to use layouts where you have foreground, background, middle ground kind of thing. You don't have lots of different variation in character size and stuff like that. You do have some faces here, but they're not big enough to contrast the character here or the characters there. Some of the bodies are a little wonky. Some of the facial expressions. I've said this before. This is the probably the hardest viewpoint on a human being is a character looking up. I mean, how much of the underneath the chin do you show? I like to not show anything because if you start scritching in some of these little lines, then it kind of looks really wonky. His fine art technique in this explosion citadel is kind of it's nice. I like it. It looks very Bill Sienkiewicz-ish, and which I truly love Sienkiewicz. This whole book is very Sienkiewicz-ish. I feel like if Sienkiewicz had started doing comics and started with instead of being a Neil Adams clone, instead he had just gone straight to his own style, this is what his original comics would look like. So, I mean, there's a lot good to be said for it, and there's a little bit of maturity that could have happened should have happened. I would really like to see the second and third issues and see how much he matures as a comic book artist, not as an artist, because you can see he can draw. You can see that he knows his stuff on anatomy and facial and all of this emotions and all of this other stuff. I mean, look here. This is completely Sienkiewicz-ish. Slash Mazzucchelli-ish. So, I mean, he's got the skills. It's just whether he transforms them into the greater good for the comic instead of his own artistic aesthetic. That is really what it boils down to. Being a slave to the story. If you're not a slave to the story and you're just doing pretty art, which is what a lot of the image guys do, then it leaves it a little bit weaker than it could have been. As for the story, very convoluted. Can't really understand anybody. The boy, he runs around and he talks and stuff. He doesn't really have a great voice. Doesn't have a background. You don't really feel any kind of sympathy for him. Some of the characters are a little hazy, so you don't really get a good feeling for the bad guy, Azor. These guards, I feel like there's a cool guard creation in there. It kind of looks like samurai helmets with a shield on front, but you don't really, see enough detail. So, I mean, the story probably bogs this down into here's a great Sienkiewicz type pose or scene. It bogs it down. The story, I feel like there could be a good story in here if they'd maybe simplified it a little bit more. But they didn't. So here you go. The Adventures of B.O.C. From Invasion Comics. I would give this, I like the art. Is it a power comic? You guys let me know. Because, I mean, he's obviously got the skills as an artist. There's some fantastic panels in there. There's some fantastic art in there. But it's not turned into comic book art. It's just kind of illustrations trying to tell a story. So you guys let me know if you've read this, if you've read the other two, and if you think it's a power comic or not. I'm going to give this a 6. I would probably give it more if the the writing was not so bad. That really drags it down. The art is definitely carries it all. And so yeah, I'm giving it a 6. If you guys like this kind of content, please consider subscribing if you're a new watcher. And if you have any suggestions for me reviewing stuff in the future, let me know. And if I have something, or if I don't, I might go out and get it. So if you have any comments, let me know, and let me know what you guys think of this. And please give me a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. And I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.